To fortify freedom, rights must be defended not only in principle, but against the corrosive pull of capture. Next, we look at how institutions and civic actors prevent state capture and keep the public interest at the core of governance. Joining us on stage are Albert Hani, Director of the Regional Anti-Corruption Initiative Secretariat, offering a regional cooperation lens on transparency and enforcement, Daniel Mitov, Minister of Interior of the Republic of Bulgaria, addressing the operational edge of safeguarding the rule of law, and Assia Ivantcheva, Senior Director for Europe at the National Endowment of Democracy, with 2 decades of experience supporting resilient institutions and civil society. The discussion will be led by CSD's Program Director, Ruslan Stefanov.
Unfortunately, Minister Mitov has not yet joined us. I'm told that he's on his way, and I will make sure he joins this discussion during the questions.
Thank you, Marian. He should be any minute now. It's a challenging discussion, especially after the just before lunch, and I could see that the minister just gets in, so this is right on time. Let me start by reminding of the work that CSD has done on state capture, and this is a very emotionally, politically charged term, of course. But CSD's research over 2 decades, the Kremlin Playbook series, as was mentioned, has shown how Russia has perfected a modern form of extractive politics, state capture. By weaponizing corruption, energy dependence, illicit finance, information control, the Kremlin has exported a model that corrodes pluralism, neutralizes independent media, and transforms markets into instruments of foreign influence. It is a system that rewards loyalty over merit, silence over accountability. It's the opposite of inclusive democracy. And actually this bears very well on and addresses the finish of the previous session, which was on human rights, that we need to be aware that this starts at home. We need to be aware that we need to preserve the inclusiveness of the institutions internally. And that we need to be very careful not to become dragons ourselves, you know, when we're fighting the dragon and the imposition of this model on us. It is utmost pleasure to have such a distinguished international panel, and of course Minister Mitov, who in his recent capacity as a Minister of the Interior of Bulgaria has faced a lot of pressure on these topics. But of course, you were previously also National Democratic Institute's Russia coordinator in Estonia, just, if I'm not mistaken, just before the war. So you have a very good overview of the issues. And from your experience in government and civil society, what are the 2 or 3 most critical, yet often subtle levers, whether in law enforcement, the judiciary, procurement, that foreign adversaries first target? And again, thank you very much for agreeing to speak in English, but also feel free to switch to Bulgarian if you feel this is better. But thanks for being with us here today for this topic, Minister.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. I apologize for the couple of minutes delay. Of course, this topic is large and quite complicated. But when it comes to state capture, we have to say the following: Russia is not a captured state. Russia is a full authoritarian regime, which tries to apply the methods that you've just so eloquently described to exert influence over other states, which it either perceives as in its own sphere of influence, or tries to basically disrupt the democratic processes in other countries, which are outside of its sphere of influence, but are still part of NATO, part of the European Union. And of course, disruption has been the long-term Russian game, and they do it quite well sometimes when it comes to disinformation, when it comes to using corruption as one of the levers how to influence decision making on the ground in certain environments where they can, which they can penetrate, which they can basically figure out ways how to reach to. And of course, the target is decision making in every aspect, but usually in justice and home affairs, military affairs, and defense. And quite often we can see this type of behavior in the media environment. Nowadays we are, of course, experiencing, as we quite often call it, second Gutenberg period. So basically a period in which everyone has a megaphone and everyone can say whatever they want through social media, after the invention of the printing press of Gutenberg. That was practically the liberating moment when authorities were destroyed, basically. Until then, the truth came from the church and from the aristocracy. Printing press kind of disrupted this type of hierarchical, very well structured world, and now we are in a moment in which we exchange information very quickly, we connect very quickly, but at the same time we have an issue with a lot of disinformation and a lot of opinions which might be free, but not always relevant, and that is misused quite often as a weapon by the Russians. That's why in the Ministry of Interior we are trying to figure out ways how to organize a task force which will target hybrid threats. Now, hybrid threats is the definition of hybrid threats is a large notion and something that I'm not really sure whether we can kind of wrap it all under one blanket, but we do have already the path for the creation of a task force related to combating money laundering, and when that becomes a reality, which is going to be in the next weeks, formally through the Council of Ministers, then what we need to organize is basically the next step, which is the hybrid threats.
Thank you. Well, we're living in the days when we are, in the words of a friend of mine, we're discussing, of course, the drama of the U.S. sanctions on Lukoil, and of course the drama, as it was put very point blankly, is do you understand? Somebody told me, do you understand that whoever controls that enterprise is essentially the feudal master of this country? And I was like, wow, that's quite a shocking thing. So in a way, we're choosing between an adversarial, in this case Russian feudal master, or somebody locally. This is what we've been all worried about. And from an international global comparative perspective, I would like to ask Ms. Assia Ivantcheva and Mr. Albert Hani. The National Endowment for Democracy, Assia is the Senior Director for Europe on that, has been a staunch supporter of CSD and the Bulgarian civil society for 30 years. And yet we've seen, we've ended up in a situation like this. What are the early warning signs in civic and political space that this process is underway? And in a way, how can we decouple this discussion of national security concerns from which are very, very important also to civil society, from the very political divisions about who actually participates in state capture? Because we've been facing this this discussion. So Assia first, and then Albert.
I'll try to be as brief as possible, given that we are facing the lunch time soon. The previous panel addressed some of these questions quite eloquently already. Thank you for that. But let me just dig a little bit deeper. The early warning signs in civic and political space. Usually, the change in public discourse, as Ombudsman Delcheva pointed out, but it doesn't come alone. It comes with institutional changes, changes to policies, to legislation, which make the work of civil society organizations quite difficult, laying the ground for, in many extreme cases, foreign agent legislation, which I'm afraid also happens in the European Union space. There's a case of the sovereignty protection law in Hungary in front of the European Court of Justice pending, but that happens across the world. In addition, media capture, and we've talked about it here, but one clear sign is targeting the most vocal, most knowledgeable journalists, investigative journalists. They usually the target, and a number of slaps, the strategic lawsuits against public participation. And I'm afraid probably some of you in the audience are experiencing some of these pressures. Then politically, preparing the grounds for the selective use of justice, which includes the politicization of the justice system, the judiciary, the prosecutor's office, which would allow then publicly motivated trials against opponents. The erosion of the anti-corruption bodies, of their independence, changes to electoral laws, including the politicization of the election commissions, etc. I can go on and on. The list is rather long. Usually this is a coordinated and concerted effort, and it needs to be addressed right away, because when it's like cancer, it metastasizes. And I'll just turn to my colleague here.
Thanks, and Albert, we've been working on for so many years with the Regional Anti-Corruption Initiative, and it's in a very peculiar position, just like us in civil society. Your regional, I think it's a unique regional anti-corruption body, which shows some initiative on the governments in the region, and at the same time we face all the time, we face these real risks, real and present danger in the region of state capture. How do we deal with that? What is the role of the RAI Day?
Thank you, Ruslan, for having me here. I really appreciate being here in such a prestigious panel and audience. We've been working together, of course, on the topic of corruption in regional level, and this is for us the main or the most important topic. However, before I start, I had just had a nice coincidence with the dragon that I got as a present from my friend here, from CAS, Norbert, and it really links with the topic that was before, with this topic. It links with the temptation also to all of us trying to become dragons and enjoy power. And this is where I think lays the core or the substance of state capture. I mean, by definition, the state capture is of course, something which is misused by politicians, by political individuals or corporations or groups in interest or in personal interest. We in RAI, which by the way, it's as you said, intergovernmental organization, is practically a diplomatic mission established by 9 countries of the Southeastern Europe, try to convey the message that integrity is far more important than corruption. Integrity is far more important than state capture, as in general, literally, I mean, state capture as well as corruption, I would say, it's a human design. I think it's human-made, and it needs a human solution. The bare existence of the Regional Anti-Corruption Initiative with head office in Sarajevo, it is a political statement of the willingness of political elite, at the time in 2000, before 25 years it was established, to actually combat corruption. They have identified the weaknesses of corruption and how this corruption is eroding the integrity, how this corruption is actually not enabling them in the path towards the European Union. Now many of those countries are inside the European Union, such as Bulgaria, and they are already helping the regions or the countries that are not inside, and they are serving also as a bridge for transporting knowledge and skills and experience, especially in terms of sensitive topics such as corruption. And this is something that needs to be used. But in general, the initiatives such as regional anti-corruption are to be welcomed everywhere, not just in Europe, but also worldwide. We are also trying to be an example for this type of initiatives to be initiated in different parts of the world. The bare signal or the support that we get from the government, because this is intergovernmental, it doesn't mean that they only support financially the institution. It means that they have also enabled their structures, their system to get advices, to get influenced, also to get influenced in opening the doors to go in a positive direction. We are also happy to have Bulgaria there in as our member country, and the Minister of Interior is actually part of our board. And yeah, I will close it here by saying that literally they gathered here to care about integrity. They turned it into an institution that cares about values and also is transporting culture of combating corruption.
Thank you. Going back to Minister Mitov, CSD has done a lot in terms of, and we're going to have a separate session afterwards in terms of monitoring and kind of holding governments accountable. The Prime Minister this morning mentioned that Bulgaria, in a ways, has graduated from any external monitoring, in this case, by our partners in Europe, on the Council of Europe, from before that CVM mechanism. But he also mentioned that this doesn't mean we're out of the woods. Actually, the EU is not out of the woods. I would say, the things that we see in the human rights, the talk about becoming a dragon and stuff like that, we see it also in the anti-corruption domain. There's been precious little energy in terms of anti-corruption initiatives on EU level, on global level, even if you want to tackle these issues that we've seen and that actually Russia's invasion in Ukraine has revealed as fundamental to our national securities. So with you being now in the position of minister, before that as a civil society person, what is the role and the limits, and what are the next steps that you feel in terms of how to tackle these thorny issues? Because it's up to us now. It's up to, we don't have our partners are there to help, but we will have, without this external monitoring, it will have to be us that strengthen the accountability of the institutions in Bulgaria, in the EU, and globally, fighting off this export of state capture model from Russia and China.
No, you're absolutely right. And when it comes to state capture, and those state capture nowadays is not exactly a domestic thing. It's a phenomenon related to globalization. It's related to offshore structures and possibilities created through hybrid media operations, if you will, larger operations, and also the willingness of people who have temporarily, of course, acquired certain type of access to decision making to either choose the national and the European interest, or they're choosing somehow to assure something for themselves. And we have examples about that throughout Europe. Bulgaria is just really not a big piece of the puzzle here when it comes to such type of decision making. If we look at certain countries, there's former chancellors, German chancellors, who clearly in the past have preferred certain type of assurances for themselves as well in the future. The Russians are have been doing this for quite a long time. And right now we know that whatever they do, it's transnational. It has nothing to do with targeting only one country like Bulgaria, or targeting only one piece of the puzzle. What they do does not recognize borders. What they do is more related to how to figure out ways to disrupt democracy, to sow mistrust in the democratic institutions, to disrupt the trust not only in the institutions but in the markets, in the ways how we deal with each other, in our cultures, in our traditions, if you will, and in our security. On all levels, this kind of goes on, and even the fact that illegal migration is instrumentalized, not only by the Russians, but by also, factors, geopolitical factors, allied with the Russian ways right now, is also a testimony to the fact that we need to be alert on so many fronts. And here, what we have is for sure, and I've identified here 3 things where we need to be building cooperation: intelligence and financial transparency cooperation, linking anti-money laundering units, financial intelligence cells, and Europol-level task forces that could trace illicit flows across jurisdictions. So this is one of those let's say areas of cooperation which are basically identified as crucial, and I believe we are building it up more and more in the last years, and especially here we need to focus also on cryptocurrencies and let's say the modern technological ways how money laundering can work. Second, coordinated efforts to bring, let's say, exposure to certain elements when identified, being Russian companies or companies used by the Russians in order to bring certain type of disruption or particular actors. And third, support for civic resilience abroad, including investigative journalism, watchdogs, whistleblower protection programs in vulnerable states. We've been doing those for a while, but maybe not with such vigor that we would like to see in general.
I'm certain a lot of people are happy to hear that from you. Do we have any questions from the audience? I'm looking to Marion or
colleagues, if I may have my mic. Thanks.
Thank you.
Indeed, we do have a couple of questions. I'll again try to summarize them in one, but they go into the line of taking the focus from the external to the internal, and they actually go back to something that the minister just shared, and that's the concept of following the money. And the most appropriate approach is to ensuring institutional resilience towards the strategic corruption as a function of state capture. What are the approaches where states, nation states, and institutional leadership can ensure resilience within the institutions themselves and not fall into schemes of kleptocratic networks?
Thank you. Maybe we start with the minister this time, just if you could have a minute, and then Albert and Assia.
Well, I know where these questions come from in terms of what is the logic for them, and I know that there's a segment in the Bulgarian political environment which likes to think that Bulgaria is a captured state. And they would like
no one's out of the woods.
They would like to convince themselves that this is the case. But let's go again to the definition of a state capture, and this is basically, according to political science and World Bank, describe a systematic subversion of the state's decision-making process by private or foreign interests. Institutions formally exist, but are informally controlled, but again, private. Quite often, those who suggest that Bulgaria is a captured state don't take into consideration that they mention political parties or political leaders as those who have captured the state. Now, Bulgaria has elections. Those elections in the last years have been won by different political parties. The power has changed. The governments have changed in a peaceful manner. Parliaments have changed in a peaceful manner, despite certain attempts for the contrary. And we have been witnessing as well attempts for state capture, but that was not something that was allowed. We have heard conversations in party, let's say, gatherings for how we need to, certain political parties were dreaming for capturing the MOI, the counterintelligence, the intelligence itself, and so on and so forth. So the way of thinking might be there, but I don't believe that we can qualify Bulgaria as anything else but a democracy with its own problems. And confusing democracy with its own problems and ways to evolve with state capture is actually devolves even the term state capture and devolves and offends countries which are actually captured and which need to be helped.
Minister, these are the exact reasons why we want to have sessions like that, because it's such a exciting, difficult, but at the same time important topic. Albert and Assia, just one word. How do we keep our institutions inclusive, right? That was what would be the one thing that I would do and that NED or
depend on oversight in the age of AI data collection and expertise that organizations like yours provide. Because without shedding light in this dark phenomenon of state capture, and without having the data, comparative data, it's very hard to argue whether it's a captured state, partially captured state, not captured state, etc. And there are so many different definitions, and I admire the minister here for getting to the core of the matter and not shying away from controversy. I would just add one more sentence, and I know we have 3 minutes left here, that Ukraine came in the conversation. And I really, since you asked me about early warning signs, admire Ukrainian civil society, not only for their resilience in pushing against the Russian aggression, but for fighting for democratic reforms against state capture and against any signs of erosion of the institutional gains on the anti-corruption fund. We saw that in July, and it worked, since you asked for solutions, when civil society went on the streets for grassroots protests. The anti-corruption activists mobilized 300 civil society organizations. We are talking under constant shelling. And the European Commission was extremely, extremely vocal, policy-wise, with direct messagings, with instruments, and that was reversed within a month. There are still issues, but we all know that it's a war against Russia. It's also an internal war against corruption.
Thank you, Assia. It's a great reminder that Ukraine is always on our minds, and this is the first line of defense. Albert, final words on?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the key word in this answer would be trust. First of all, trust among ourselves that we can fight everything that is eroding, destroying our political system, everything that is putting in virus of destroyment in decision-making structures. To do this, I think personally we need to first of all have a trust inside ourselves that we can actually fight against this phenomenon. Secondly, find alliances, something which was also said by the ministers, and trust also to them, like trust to civil society, that they can provide us with a lot of help, they can provide us with guidance, they can help us pave a better road to fighting corruption. Media is also important here, and trust in media, and not just trust, but freedom to expose actually the the corrupted elements in every pore of the society, it is important. And private sector was said here, but yes, the biggest leverage here has the private sector, and we should be aware of it. They often don't enter even inside the political system. They use their power through money. And corruption, as well as state capture, has evolved with methodologies today. So another element I would like also to bring for the end here, when we talk about trust, it is important to know that trust comes also from asking help from friends that you are having around, like we do in RAI, where we gather all the countries to help each other actually fighting corruption. This is not a small thing. It is a big thing where literally countries gather from a local level to national level, in regional level, all the experiences, and try to learn from each other and try to really fight properly and most efficiently the corruption. This is a nice methodology for fighting corruption, but also helping our countries to get rid of the notion of state captured in general.
Thank you, Albert. And on this thought, we will finish the panel. I just want to make sure we remember the important lesson of Ukraine, which is under shelling. And this is also something that CSD, I believe, has done, and also RAI in the past years, under constant shelling from internally, externally, and the minister can assert to that too, also politically. We have to continue our fight for inclusive and more institutions with more integrity, accountable institutions. And that, of course, we must reclaim as a union, as a European Union, our moral high ground globally in terms of trust and institutional integrity, because this is the only way that will improve the resilience and actually be able to withstand the onslaught on democracy and to fortify freedom. Thank you so much for sharing with us this half an hour. I'm now happy to announce that we are moving on to lunch, or maybe our Uber moderator is going to do that. So, yes. Molly, up to you. Thanks again, and please a big round of applause for